Hey everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to Sunday Chats with Nim. This is Nim Kolkar. And we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting today. So I'm just going to wait for a few moments to make sure nobody misses out on today's topic. Now, I'm actually testing out a different mic today, so I would really appreciate if someone would quickly drop in a comment to let me know that the audio is clear, because I've tested stuff from my end, but I just want to make sure you all can hear me clearly, because I want you to walk away from today's session having picked up some of my top tips on how to become an effective communicator. So can you all hear me clearly? Hi, Kale. How are you? Hi, Poonam. Welcome. Kale says the audio is clear. Suni says yes. Hi, Suni. Welcome to Sunday Chats. Today we're talking about how to become an effective communicator, which is my absolute favorite topic in the whole wide world to talk about. So I'm really excited, and I hope you are too. And hopefully you've had a nice Sunday so far. Poonam says audio is clear. Thank you, Poonam. Sonia says clear audio. Thank you, Sonia. Welcome everyone to today's session. Okay, so we're talking about effective communication. Now, what I wanted to clarify right at the very start of today's session is that being able to speak a language effectively or correctly from a grammar perspective does not necessarily make a person an effective communicator. I know lots of people who have great command over a certain language, for example, let's say English. They may speak grammatically perfect English, but they are not necessarily effective communicators, because there is a whole lot more to communication than simply the ability to speak grammatically correct language. So that's why today I'm going to actually share with you my top 3 tips. I'm going to keep it really, really simple. And if you have any questions regarding those tips, or you have any insights or opinions that you would like to share about that, or any examples that you'd like to put forward, I would love to read it, because like I always say, my sessions need to be interactive, because I get sick of hearing my own voice for 20 minutes at a stretch. Okay, so let's dive right in with my first tip for becoming an effective communicator. The first tip is, do you remember to pause before replying? Okay, so my first tip relates to the fact that so many people have forgotten the art of the pause. Pausing. Okay, so let's build up a scenario. Think about for a moment about how you communicate when you are interacting with your colleagues, with your peers, with senior management, with your boss. Let's say they have asked you for an explanation about why something was not done or completed from your end. What do? Do you jump into an explanation or a justification straight away as soon as they have finished asking their question? If you do so, I have got some interesting insights in store for you. Now, the master communicators in this world, they know the importance of pausing just very slightly for a few seconds before they reply. They don't immediately blurt out the first explanation that comes to their mind when they are put on the spot by some kind of question they were not expecting from their colleagues, peers, teammates, or their managers. They pause. Right? Now, there are many, many different benefits of pausing before you reply. The first benefit is that when you pause, it gives you the opportunity to gather your thoughts. to think about what it is that you want to focus on, and then to formulate your reply so that when you end up speaking, you say exactly what you want to say and you don't end up saying the wrong thing. The second benefit of pausing before replying is that when you take a few seconds to think about your reply, you actually give out the impression to the other person that you are seriously considering the question they have put forward. And that in itself is a compliment to the other person. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel special. Right? So now, of course, there are some people who take so long before they formulate a reply that the opposite person falls asleep. We're not talking about that. I'm not saying that you need to have an extensive, drawn-out pause before you reply, but pausing just for maybe 2 or 3 seconds while you formulate your response, while you gather your thoughts, that actually sends out powerful silent signals of how much you believe in yourself. It sends out a silent signal about your level of self-confidence. Because if you think about all the superbly confident people that you know in your life, you will recognize that they are not in a hurry to blurt out the very first thought that comes to their mind. How often would you have been caught in a situation where you come home and you think, damn, I wish I hadn't said what I said. I wish I had taken a moment to gather my thoughts. Right? So remember that confident people and confident communicators will take a few seconds to formulate their thoughts, to gather their thoughts together before they reply. And usually when they take those few seconds to think about what it is that they want to say, they very rarely end up saying the wrong things that they will later regret. Okay, so that was my first tip for effective communication, which is pause before replying. It does not have to be a long, drawn-out, extensive pause, just 2 or 3 seconds while you gather your thoughts. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly say my highs. If you just joined in, my friends, please say hi, Nim, or hello, Nim, because I love to hear from you. Oh, hi, Esther. Esther says, hi, Nim. Good to see you. Good to see you too. And Poonam says, very nice topic, key to success. Thank you, Poonam. I do agree with you that being an effective communicator is one of the fundamentals of success. So that was my first tip for effective communication. Like I promised at the start, I'm going to share with you 3 tips today. The second tip is one of my favorites, and that is don't interrupt. I'm going to tell you more about that, but let me quickly say my highs. Hi, Achal. Welcome. Hi, Nirakar. How are you? Welcome aboard. Okay, so my second tip is don't interrupt. And I am going to give you a really funny example. And I've actually written an article about that some time ago as well. Right, I remember I was at some social event way back before this whole lockdown and social distancing thing started. I was at a social event and there was a group of women who were chatting, right? All of us were sort of discussing a few things. Now, one woman happened to say, hey guys, you won't believe the surprise my husband gave me on our anniversary. And she was so excited about what she was about to say. And she opened her mouth to tell us exactly what that surprise was. And another woman in the group got right in, interrupted her and said, oh my God, what a coincidence. My husband recently too gave me such an amazing surprise on my anniversary. And I was so shocked. And on and on and on she went, diving into her own story, leaving the poor young woman who was, about to tell us her own story completely speechless. And the entire conversation went off on a tangent in a completely different direction. And the other young woman never did get a chance to tell us what surprise her husband gave on her anniversary. Now, I know that many of us have been guilty of the same mistake. Someone starts talking. Someone is about to tell us about an experience they had. We remember something similar that happened in our own lives, and off we take the conversation in the direction that we want. Now, do we do this because we're selfish, or because we are full of ourselves, or because we don't want the other person to talk? No, it's not necessarily the case. Very often people interrupt someone mid-flow is because they are so excited to learn that they've had a similar experience and they can't wait to share that experience with the other person. But you know what? It leaves the other person feeling unheard, unvalidated. It makes them feel as though their story, their adventure, their experience does not matter, and that it's all about you. Okay? No one does this purposely. I mean, some maybe, but most of us get so excited when we hear something that is similar to what happened in our own lives that we just want to jump right in and share our own experiences. So I suggest that next time someone is telling you about something exciting that happened in their life, when they're telling you about an event or an incident, even if it triggers a memory of something similar that happened to you not long ago, resist the temptation to interrupt them. Hear them out and then say the magical 3 words that every good communicator knows. And those 3 words are, tell me more. When you ask the person who is talking to tell you a little bit more about their experience, they feel as though they are heard and they are valued. And when the opposite person feels that they are heard, it helps you build a long-term relationship with them. I believe it was Maya Angelou who said that famous quote that people will forget how you made them, what you made them think, or how you made them act, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Right? So make people feel that they are special by listening to them without interrupting. So that was my second tip, which was don't interrupt people when they are telling you their stories and their adventures. Okay, I'm going to just quickly see my highs. Nirakar says pause before replying. Yes, that was my first tip. So important. We've got to pause before we reply. Hi, Jaimin. How are you? Welcome. And Niraka says, I have to be conscious next time before interrupting. It happens to me. Well, Niraka, it happens to most of us. And like I said just earlier, we don't do it deliberately. We do it because we feel excited that we had a similar experience and we can't wait to share that, right? But personally, I've learned over the years that when people are talking, they love the sound of their own voice, and we should give them their moment in the sun. Let them enjoy the limelight. Let them fully explain their adventure. So like I said, the magical phrase is, tell me more. When they finish talking to their heart's content, that will be your opportunity to then say, hey, guess what? I really enjoyed hearing about what you just said. Something similar happened to me not long ago. And then you dive into your own story. You know, if you don't interrupt other people and you let them have their say, you'll find that they are much more willing to listen to what you have to say, and they truly tune in. But if we interrupt them, chances are they stop focusing on whatever it is that we are saying. Okay, so that was my second tip for becoming an effective communicator. And the third and final tip I want to share with you today, again, something that many of us are guilty of on a daily basis, is don't start forming your response while the other person is still talking. So my third tip is don't start forming your response while the other person is still talking. I've often noticed people who get this sort of blank look in their eyes while the other person is talking to them. So this person is nodding and giving all the signals that they're listening, but their eyes are blank. And that's because they're not really tuned in to what the other person is saying. They're busy trying to form their own response right? They're terrified that when that person finishes talking, they will not have a response ready. So they start thinking about their reply and start thinking about how they're going to argue that point, what words they're going to use, etc., etc. And do you know what happens when you start designing your reply while the other person is still talking? You don't hear everything that is said. And that's why when the person finally does finish talking, and because you've switched off halfway, your response many times will probably not be aligned with what the other person has put forward. Which is why many times people get the tag of being poor communicators. It has very little to do with how they speak, and it has a lot to do with how they listen, right? So no matter how tempted you are to start thinking about your own response and thinking about what words you're going to use when it's finally your turn to talk, I suggest start trusting yourself a little more. Trust yourself and know that when the time comes for you to speak, you will know what to say. Because the funny thing is that when you've paid attention, when you've truly listened, you will understand the context of what is being spoken. And once you've understood the context, you are in a far stronger position to put forward the right response. So if you are in the habit of sort of going off into your own world while the other person is still talking, bring yourself back into the conversation. Truly focus on the words that are being spoken by the other person, whether that's in a workplace situation or at home or amongst your friends. Truly focus on what is being said. And when they finish talking, trust yourself and know that you will know what to say when it's your turn. Okay, so those were my 3 tips. I'm quickly going to summarize before I wrap up for today. The first tip was learn to pause before replying. Doesn't have to be a long and extensive pause, just 2 or 3 seconds so that you can gather your thoughts and so that you don't blurt out the wrong response that you will later regret. The second tip for effective communication is don't interrupt other people, even if you have something far more exciting to share than what they are sharing. And the last tip is become an effective listener. Don't start formulating your response in your mind while the other person is still talking. So my friends, that's it for today. My top 3 tips for being an effective communicator. These are tips that I practice myself, and I found them immensely successful over the years in building long-term professional and personal relationships. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's session. I'm going to see you very soon with yet another video. I have some exciting interviews lined up for my show, The Achievers Lounge, and I'll share them with you next week. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.